Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. My name is Juan McCartney. I'm the Corporate and Consumer Relations Manager here at the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority. On behalf of the board and our executives and all our staff at URCA, want to welcome you, and again, thank you for coming. We're going to start off today, before we get into the meat of our oral hearing, with a word of prayer. We want to ask Alexis Burrows, who's with the Corporate and Consumer Relations Department, to open us up with a word of prayer, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. All right, heads bowed, eyes closed. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to meet together today, Lord, to discuss the annual report for 2025 and the annual plan for 2026 so far and the remainder of the year. Lord, we are thankful for the work that this organization gets to do on behalf of its stakeholders, including licensees as well as our consumers. Father, we pray that this would be a productive meeting, that any questions that need to be answered would be answered, Lord, and it would be a healthy and productive conversation. We thank you for this time together. We pray that you would bless our time. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks so much, Alexis. For those of you who are here and those of you joining us on Zoom, again, welcome. I want to first explain what it is we're doing here today. A lot of you would already be familiar with URCA, but we are the statutorily set up independent regulator for electronic communications, natural gas, and electricity, and other utilities as yet to be added in the Bahamas. The oral hearing that we're here doing today is statutorily mandated. We have every year published before the end of the year our draft annual plan for the forthcoming year, which includes the work we're going to do in the sectors, our key performance indicators, as well as our budget for the upcoming year. Our budget would be funded by the licensees of URCA. Again, we are independently funded, not by taxpayer dollars, but of those of you who are here are licensees by the money we generate from your organizations. And so we want to be accountable. And we also are mandated to discuss our annual report, which is published by the end of April every year, which outlines how we performed against the budget outlined in the annual plan, which outlines how we performed with those KPIs, and which also outlines the work we did and actually got accomplished that was in the plan and that happened outside the plan. We're going to do things a bit differently this year. Normally we have presentations by the sector directors as well as the chief finance officer. What we've done this year is compose videos to make it more digestible for you during the meeting and online and afterward. We are going to show the video for the annual plan first, the annual report first, and then we are going to have a presentation by finance about our actual performance versus budgeted for 2025, and then we're going to show the video for the annual plan for 2026, and then we're going to open the floor here as well as online for any questions that you may have. The theme of this year's oral hearing is evolution. Over the past couple of years, the sectors that we regulate have changed dramatically. Electronic communications, ICTs, is rapidly evolving around the world with space technology, with connectivity, with the advent of AI and the rapid development of that. And so we are evolving as an organization as the ecosystem itself evolves. In 2024, the Natural Gas Act was passed, the new Electricity Act was passed, and that changed the way the energy infrastructure in the country works as far as the law is concerned, as well as far as the regulator is concerned. We've involved now in a very significant way solar energy into the mix. We've involved natural gas into the mix. And so we have an expanded remit and an entirely different way that we approach regulation within these sectors. And we wanted to involve you as heavily as possible beyond our normal process of public consultation in how URCA regulates these sectors. So I'm going to allow us to play the video. It's about 10 minutes. I urge you to pay attention to anything in there so that if there's anything you want to raise afterward, take notes, and we'll be happy to address it as best we can. Before we get into the video, let me just introduce our speakers today who will be answering any questions that you may have. I want to first thank our Chief Executive Officer, Carlton Smith, for being here with us today. He's going to allow the other managers and executives executives to answer questions today, but if you have anything specifically that you want to ask of Carlton, I'm sure he'll be happy to answer. So here we have Devon Moss, who's our He's our finance manager. He's sitting in for our chief finance officer, Faith Johnson, who couldn't be here with us today. Next to him, we have Jerome Elliott, who's regulatory manager in the utilities and energy sector. He can answer your questions about natural gas, about solar, about electricity. Next to him, we have our director of electronic communications, Nicole Watkins, who can answer questions regarding electronic communications. And next to Nicole, we have Dr. Walden Russell, who's our chief operating officer. You'll hear from them all in these videos, but they'll be here to answer any questions you may have afterward. So let's get the video going. This is our initial run of the video. So if there are any tweaks we need to do with the AV, we'll do that. But please enjoy and pay attention.
In 2025, URCA continued its evolution as the Bahamas' independent multi-sector regulator, with responsibilities across electronic communications, electricity, and natural gas. This was a year of continued institutional strengthening, expanded regulatory responsibility, and steady work to support the sectors that are essential to the daily lives of Bahamians. The theme of URCA's 2025 annual report is evolution. That theme reflects both the changes taking place in the sectors we regulate and the internal work required to ensure URCA remains fit for purpose. During the year, URCA continued to operate in an increasingly complex environment. The organization's responsibilities now span electronic communications, electricity, and natural gas, each with its own legal framework, stakeholder expectations, and public interest considerations. Operationally, our focus in 2025 was on strengthening readiness, improving internal systems, and ensuring that we could continue meeting our statutory obligations while preparing for the future. URCA advanced several cross-cutting initiatives aimed at improving efficiency and service delivery. These included continued progress on the implementation of an integrated electronic document management tool and the digitization of operational processes. These improvements are designed to reduce manual workflows, enhance collaboration, strengthen information management, and support a more responsive organization. We also continue to invest in people, human resource development, training, capacity building, and succession planning remain central priorities as URCA works to build the technical, legal, economic, administrative, and operational expertise required for a modern regulator. Stakeholder engagement also remained a major focus. In 2025, URCA continued its public-facing work through consultations, consumer engagements, outreach initiatives, and participation in national, regional, and international regulatory discussions. At the same time, we acknowledge that organizational growth comes with challenges. Expanding responsibilities place pressure on systems, resources, and capacity. But 2025 demonstrated that URCA is becoming more structured, more capable, and better positioned to support the needs of the Bahamas.
In the electronics communication sector, URCA's work in 2025 focused on improving the resiliency of communication services throughout the archipelago, assessing the value of emerging technologies like satellite technology to Bahamian consumers, and doing preparatory works to find solutions to ensure all Bahamians enjoy access to high-quality communication services in the near future. We also spent a fair amount of time preparing the broadcasting sector for the recently concluded general elections. Through the implementation of the new code of practice, broadcasters were encouraged to exercise fair, unbiased, and impartial journalism. The ECS remains foundational to national development. It includes fixed and mobile telecommunications, internet, pay television, broadcasting, and the management of radio frequency spectrum. For the Bahamas, effective regulation of this sector must also take account of the archipelagic reality, dispersed islands, infrastructure challenges, and severe weather exposure, and the need for reliable connectivity across communities. During 2025, URCA advanced preparatory work on several important ECS initiatives, including the review of the Quality of Services Framework, consultation on universal service obligations, and the process for designation of universal service provider, and ICTs for persons with disabilities. Having started the works on these consultations in 2025, URCA is working towards beginning these consultative processes very soon. URCA also completed the implementation of remedies following the Fixed Market Services and Pay Television review. These revised rules repealed and replaced the old rules and introduced a more robust and streamlined approach to regulatory oversight for regulatory services, whilst enshrining our principles of consumer protection. With regard to the National Spectrum Plan, this consultation was published in 2025, responses were received, and the NSP was completed and published in T1 of this year. The NSP sets out the Bahamas' spectrum band allocation, thereby ensuring effective spectrum management. This is vitally important for the Bahamas, especially as current trends in emerging technologies become more prevalent. URCA took another important step in 2025 by continuing the development of its satellite framework. This framework, which will be published shortly, codifies the Bahamas' regulations regarding satellite technology, covering matters including spectrum, regulatory obligations and requirements, fees, and services to be offered. URCA also advanced work on the 5G regulatory framework. URCA's work in 2025 laid the foundation for the next phase of consultation, including issues such as spectrum assignment, license conditions, rollout obligations, quality of service benchmarks, infrastructure resilience, and network security. The final phase of this 5G consultation just wrapped up last week. URCA is now in the process of reviewing responses with a view of issuing a statement of results soon. Overall, 2025 was a year of steady progress in ECS regulation. Our work continues to be guided by consumer demand for ubiquitous services throughout the archipelago, improving the lives of all Bahamians through connectivity and technology, supporting innovation and creating a regulatory ecosystem that encourages investments in the sector.
For the electricity sector, 2025 was a year of substantial regulatory development. The Electricity Act 2024 introduced an enhanced statutory framework, and URCA's work during the year focused on supporting a more transparent, accountable, reliable, and consumer-focused electricity sector. URCA's electricity sector work program was guided by the objectives of promoting competition, ensuring access to a safe and reliable electricity, supporting affordability, advancing energy efficiency, and strengthening consumer protection. Several important projects were progressed during the year. These included the review of Bahamas Power and Light's fuel tariff with the objective of assessing whether the fuel cost recovery mechanism complies with applicable laws and regulatory frameworks, and whether costs passed on to consumers reflect efficient procurement and operational practices. A renewed focus on energy efficiency and demand-side management. These efforts were incorporated into the broader vision of the National Energy Policy, which was completed in 2025 and which places strong emphasis on efficiency and sustainability. URCA also continued work on the review and revision of licensing processes and licensee reporting requirements, both of which are important to improving regulatory decision-making and reducing unnecessary administrative burden. The consideration and review of BPL's tariff framework and integrated resource plan are essential tools for understanding how electricity demand will be met in a manner that is cost-reflective, efficient, sustainable, and aligned with national energy objectives. The Natural Gas Act 2024 made URCA responsible for regulating all aspects of the natural gas value chain in the Bahamas. In the natural gas sector, 2025 saw efforts which were aligned with building the regulatory foundations for a new and strategically important industry. During the year, URCA advanced work on licensing, tariff oversight, safety standards, compliance procedures, public education, complaints handling, investigation procedures, and the development of a gas service worker license. This work is foundational since natural gas is an emerging regulated sector and public confidence depends on clear rules, safety standards, and transparency and effective oversight. By the end of 2025, URCA had made important progress in transitioning from framework development towards active regulatory oversight. As the energy landscape continues to change, URCA's role will be to ensure that development takes place in a lawful, orderly, safe, and sustainable manner.
Financial accountability is a critical part of URCA's mandate. The annual report includes URCA's fiscal performance for 2025 and the audited financial statements for the year. In 2025, URCA continued to manage its resources in support of an expanded regulatory mandate. The authority's financial activities were guided by the need to maintain transparency, accountability, and value in the delivery of regulatory services. Strong governance frameworks support our financial reporting. The Audit Committee plays a key role by reviewing monthly financial reports, monitoring audit recommendations, and reviewing the annual financial statements. As URCA's remit has expanded, financial planning has become increasingly important. The authority must ensure that resources are available to regulate the regulated sectors effectively while maintaining strong controls and responsible expenditure. The 2025 audited financial statements present URCA's financial position and performance for the year, highlighting how resources were allocated to support core operations and regulatory responsibilities. The financial story of 2025 is not simply about income and expenditure. It is about ensuring that URCA has the financial foundation needed to carry out its statutory duties, strengthen internal capacity, and support long-term institutional effectiveness.
URCA's 2025 annual report reflects a year of evolution in our sectors, in our responsibilities, and in the organization itself. Across electronic communications, electricity, and natural gas, URCA continued to advance its work in the public interest. We strengthened internal systems, supported consumer protection, advanced regulatory frameworks, and continued to build the capacity required for the future. Our mission remains clear: improving lives through effective utilities regulation. As the Bahamas continues to evolve, URCA will continue to evolve with it, guided by fairness, integrity, accountability, transparency, professionalism, and service to the Bahamian people.
What we're going to have now is Devon come and give a presentation on our budget performance for 2025. We put out our budget plan every year, but what he's going to do is show you how we actually performed against that plan. Devon?
So today we will look at the results of 2025. This will involve us looking at our budget versus actuals, our statement of financial position, and income over expenditure. To tell you a little bit about how we got it, I will provide a high-level explanation of our budgeting process. The URCA Act, Section 40, Paragraph 1, addresses the funding of our organization and states that URCA shall conduct its affairs so as to ensure that its revenues are at least sufficient to enable URCA to meet the cost of carrying out its functions. To meet this requirement, URCA puts together a budget which involves all the key players for both the regulatory and operations teams to work in tandem to ensure the effective running of URCA. The foundation upon which the budget is built is the annual plan. This plan guides us in determining the assumptions to be used in setting levels of resource utilization, both internal and external, and quantifying or placing a dollar value to these assumptions using the best available information at the time. This means that during the budgeting process, all initiatives, whether regulatory or operational, that in the previous year or years which have not occurred, we determine how much financial resources had been assigned to each of those initiatives and label that as a residual budget allocation and reduce the current requested budget allocation by that amount. Once there's an agreed amount needed to effectively operate the organization relative to the terms of our mandate, we determine how much of the indirect costs are attributable to each sector and calculate the respective URCA fee for the specific year. This calculation is based on our recoverable budget, or the funds that we are requesting from the industry. So going forward, when you hear the term budget, it is a recoverable budget that I'm speaking about. Just to talk you through some of the highlights, income totaled 10.49 million for the year, which was below budget by approximately 550,000. Operating expenses budgeted at $11 million were below budget by approximately 2.69 million. This variance was primarily driven by professional fees, provision for doubtful accounts, and premises occupancy costs. This resulted in total comprehensive income of 2.2 million for 2025. So next, I'll walk you through how each sector contributed to these outcomes. Overall, income was below budget by 550,000. Here's how that broke down across the sectors. There was an adverse variance in each of the sectors as follows. For the electronic communications, 111,000. For electricity, 386,000. And for natural gas, 49,000. In the electronic communications and electricity sectors, this was due to major licensees that are part of ongoing litigation that are long outstanding, and we have agreed with our auditors not to include that in revenue. However, it remains a part of our subledger. In the natural gas sector, 2025 was the first full year of operation and the first year that licenses were distributed. It was anticipated that at least one more license would be distributed and billed during the year. This did not materialize, which resulted in the budgetary expectation not being met. Operating expenses were budgeted at 11 million, but were low budget by approximately 2.69 million. In the electronic communication sector, this was driven by operational expenses such as staffing, premises occupancy costs, office services, consumer education and public relations, professional services, and provision for doubtful accounts being lower than anticipated. In the electricity sector, that movement was mostly attributable to professional services and provision for doubtful accounts. In the natural gas sector, the variance was driven by professional services and staffing. So let's talk about these differences a little bit further. For professional services, the variance was primarily due to discontinued or deferred projects in the electricity and natural gas sectors. In the electricity sector, these projects were projects such as a revision of RE frameworks, review of BPL tariff, review of BPL integrated resource plan. In the natural gas sector, this included the gas service worker license regulation, gas service worker license platform, and review of the license applications. So if you skip a few slides right there, you would see that general and administrative services. This was greater than anticipated due to spending on professional membership, support for the Bahamas representation in the ITU campaign for a senior ITU position, and increased auto maintenance expenses. Depreciation was less than budgeted, as works related to URCA's buildings such as the infrastructure upgrade, elevator, and generator were not completed and placed in service during the period. Premises occupancy cost was less than anticipated, as works originally intended to be repairs and maintenance became a capital expenditure. For office services, this was less than anticipated due to less finance charges than anticipated on URCA's loan. Consumer education and public relations were lower than anticipated due to less than anticipated family island travel and public relations initiatives. Provision for doubtful accounts was again related to the issue with the licensees in the electronic communications and electricity sectors who are going through the legal dispute. Therefore, their related billings are fully provided for. So that wraps up our look at the budget versus actuals. Next, we will compare our results in 2025 against 2024. So first, we will look at our statement of financial position. For the year end 31st December 2025, the net assets increased by approximately 28%. So let's take a further look at that. Period over period, there was a 69% increase in the current assets, which was due primarily to an increase in event deposits and memberships and subscription fees. There was also an increase of 15% in our non-current assets. This was due to construction work in progress related to URCA's building. There was also an 82% increase in total liabilities, which is primarily due to a loan facility being established to facilitate the infrastructure upgrade and amounts payable related to that upgrade project. The overview of the Statement of Income over Expenditure compares URCA's 2025 results to the previous year. The following are of note. Revenues derived from fees increased 16% as a result of the increase in the URCA fee rate for the ECS and the first billing related to the natural gas sector. Expenses increased by 3% as a result of the continued execution of work plan initiatives. Other income and expenses is driven by a loss on the disposal of an asset. So let's take a deeper look at lines A to C, which relates to our revenue. So license fee revenue increased overall. The license fee rate in the ECS increased in 2025, but decreased in the ES in 2025. And this was due to staff sharing resources between the ES and the natural gas sector. Other fees increased due to application fees primarily related to the natural gas sector. In F, salaries and benefits increased as a result of new hires, increases in compensation and staff benefits. In G, legal, professional, consultancy fees decreased in the current period, notwithstanding work done on the USO, USP, and USF on other major projects. In the previous period, work was done on major projects such as the BPL, efficiency audit, and fixed market reviews. In J, advertising and public relations decreased due to lower expenditure on Family Island travel and public relations initiatives. And in K, provisions decreased due to greater emphasis being placed on collection efforts.
URCA's 2026 annual plan outlines the organization key projects, consultation schedule, performance indicators, and the budget for the year ahead. It reflects URCA's continued commitment to effective, transparent, and accountable regulations across electronic communications, electricity, and natural gas. The 2026 annual plan comes at an important time for URCA and for the Bahamas. The sectors we regulate are changing rapidly. Electronic communications continue to be shaped by new technologies, cybersecurity concerns, spectrum demand, and the need for resilient infrastructure. The electricity sector is undergoing significant reform, with new legislation, new licensees, renewable energy growth, and increased expectations around reliability, affordability, and accountability. The natural gas is emerging as a new regulated sector, requiring careful attention to safety, licensing, tariff, and public education. Against this backdrop, URCA's 2026 annual plan is designed to ensure that the organization remains focused, capable, and responsive. Operationally, our priorities include continued investment in internal capacity, improved digital systems, longer governance, more efficient workflows, and enhanced stakeholder engagement. The organization will continue embedding digital practices across its operations, building on the work completed in 2025. This includes improving how we manage information, process applications, support internal collaboration, and provide access to regulatory information. Human resources and learning will also remain a priority. As URCA's mandate grows, so does the need for specialized expertise, training, recruitment, succession planning, and organizational development will be essential to ensure that URCA has the people and skills required to regulate effectively. Stakeholder engagement will continue to be central to our work. The annual plan includes consultations, sector engagement, public education, and continued efforts to ensure that regulated entities, consumers, government stakeholders, and the wider public understand URCA's work and have an opportunity to participate in the regulatory process. In 2026, URCA's goal is not only to respond to change, but to help shape a regulatory environment that supports national development, protects consumers, and promotes confidence in the sectors that power and connect the Bahamas.
In 2026, URCA's work in the electronic communications sector will focus on resilience, innovation, inclusion, and regulatory clarity. Several key ECS projects are scheduled for advancement during the year. One major area is the continuation of work on the quality of service regulations for electronic communications networks and services. Quality of service remains a critical issue, especially in an archipelagic nation where connectivity challenges can vary from island to island. URCA's work will support stronger service expectations, improved accountability, and better outcomes to consumers. URCA will also continue to work on universal service obligations and the process for designation of universal service providers. This is especially important as communication access becomes increasingly tied to education, business, emergency responses, digital inclusion, and economic participation. The 5G regulatory framework will also remain a major priority. The work includes consideration of spectrum assignment, pricing, license conditions, rollout obligation, quality of service standards, infrastructure resilience, and network security. This framework will help determine how the Bahamas enables next-generation mobile services in a way that is responsible, secure, and beneficial to the public. Following on from this is the infrastructure sharing, which will be reviewed. This is important because shared infrastructure can support more efficient network deployment, reduce duplication, and assist with the expansion of advanced electronic communication services. Cybersecurity guidelines for the public electronic communications network and services will continue to be developed in alignment with the National Cybersecurity Framework. These guidelines are intended to support network resilience and help protect consumers, operators, and wider digital ecosystem. URCA's 2026 ECS work program also includes a regulatory framework for satellite-based electronic communication services, commercial operations and license exempt spectrum, submarine communications, cable systems, and a review of disaster management regulations. The annual plan also includes new projects such as the development of a national electronic communications band plan and the establishment of URCA Regulatory Sandbox, known as the Innovation Reef. These initiatives are designed to support innovation while maintaining appropriate regulatory oversight. Ultimately, the ECS priorities for 2026 are about ensuring that the Bahamas is prepared for the future with communication services that are reliable, inclusive, secure, competitive, and resilient.
The Utilities and Energy Department enters 2026 at an important time for the energy sector in the Bahamas. With the passage of the Electricity Act 2024, the Natural Gas Act of 2024, and the completion of the National Energy Policy 2025 to 2030, URCA's role in the energy sector has expanded significantly. By November 2025, the number of licensees had grown from 6 to 23, with new license categories, new market participants, and greater private sector involvement in generation, distribution, and related energy activities. That growth is positive, but it also brings greater responsibility. URCA must ensure that the sector develops in a way that is lawful, orderly, safe, reliable, and in the long-term interest of its consumers. In the electricity sector, URCA's 2026 priorities will focus on consumer value, regulatory certainty, reliability, affordability, sustainability, and accountability. One of the major priorities will be the BPL fuel tariff review and audit. This work is important because fuel costs are passed directly on to consumers. URCA's review is intended to assess whether the fuel cost recovery mechanism complies with the law and the applicable regulatory framework, and whether the costs being recovered from consumers reflect efficient procurement and operational practices. Energy efficiency and demand-side management will also remain important areas of work. These issues are closely aligned with the national energy policy and are central to helping the Bahamas use energy more efficiently, reduce unnecessary demand on the system, and support a more sustainable energy future. URCA will also continue the review and revision of licensee reporting requirements. This work is being aligned with the development of a dedicated digital portal, which is expected to make reporting more efficient, improve transparency, and give URCA better information to support regulatory decisions. Another important area of preparation will be the review of BPL's tariff application, which is required under the Electricity Act. URCA will also continue preparing for the assessment of BPL's integrated resource plan, should it be filed during the year. These are important regulatory tools because they help determine how electricity demand will be met, what investments may be required, and whether future planning is consistent with national energy objectives. URCA will also continue to support renewable energy uptake within the existing framework, particularly photovoltaic systems. At the same time, public education will remain important so that customers better understand the opportunities, requirements, and limitations associated with renewable energy. In the natural gas sector, 2026 will be a year of continued framework development and early implementation. URCA's priorities will include natural gas tariff guidelines, complaints handling procedures, investigation procedures, public education, licensing processes, and the continued development of the gas service worker license. This work is foundational. Natural gas is a new regulated sector for the Bahamas, and public confidence will depend on clear rules, practical safety standards, transparent processes, and effective oversight. Overall, the department's work in 2026 will be grounded in building on the progress made in 2025 and moving more fully into active regulatory oversight while ensuring that URCA's regulation keeps pace with the changing needs of consumers, licensees, and the wider Bahamian economy.
URCA's 2026 budget has been prepared to support the organization's planned activities across the electronic communications sector, electricity sector, and natural gas sector. The budget is separated by sector, consistent with URCA's statutory obligations under the URCA Act, the Communications Act, the Electricity Act, and the Natural Gas Act. For 2026, URCA proposes an approximate 12% increase in its operating budget, excluding depreciation, compared to 2025. This increase reflects the resources required to fulfill URCA's expanding mandate, particularly in relation to the emerging natural gas sector and the continued growth of regulatory responsibilities across energy and electronic communications. One key driver is staffing. 4 positions are proposed to support URCA's expanded remit, strengthen operational expertise, and build capacity in areas where regulatory demands are increasing. At the same time, URCA is seeking efficiencies in several areas. Professional services are projected to decrease, in part because some regulatory projects are being completed in-house or deferred. Premises and utilities are also expected to decrease following the near completion of major repair works at Frederick House. There are also planned increases in areas directly tied to URCA's regulatory and national responsibilities. Conferences, training, and travel are expected to increase largely because the Bahamas will host an international regulatory forum, the World Telecommunication Policy Forum, in 2026, along with a National Cybersecurity Forum. Regulatory fieldwork is also projected to increase to support enhanced monitoring and oversight of regulated sectors, including natural gas. Capital expenditure is expected to decrease following the conclusion of the Frederick House Infrastructure Improvement Project, although several deferred infrastructural projects, including the replacement of the elevator and generator, are scheduled for execution in 2026. The 2026 budget is therefore about balance, ensuring that URCA has the financial resources needed to regulate effectively while maintaining transparency, efficiency, and value for stakeholders.
URCA's 2026 annual plan is a roadmap for continued progress. It reflects the work required to regulate the sectors that are essential to the Bahamian people, the services that connect us, power our homes and businesses, support economic activity, and contribute to national development. In 2026, URCA will continue to strengthen its internal capacity, advance key consultations, enhance regulatory frameworks, support consumer protection, and engage stakeholders across the Bahamas. Our work will continue to be guided by our mission, improving lives through effective utilities regulation. As the Bahamas moves forward, URCA remains committed to regulating with fairness, integrity, accountability, transparency, professionalism, and a people-centered approach.
We can now move on to the question and answer period. If anyone in the room has any questions, I think we have some members of the media here as well. Any questions you have for any of us at URCA, please let us know. Also, we have people in on the Zoom meeting, and Alexis, you can let us know if anyone has any questions on Zoom. We could start. Any questions? No questions from anyone in the room? Commentary? Anything at all? Do we have anything on Zoom? Nothing on Zoom? Okay. All right. Well, this is your opportunity. You have a captive executive management team here. But if there are no questions, totally understand. I guess we did an effective job of hopefully helping you understand what occurred. Yes? Hi. It's Cable Bahamas? Okay, yes.
Yeah, so in reference to the disaster management regulation, I know that one of the priorities for URCA is to look at it and to possibly make amendments to it either this year or next year. But with the backdrop that we have, we live in the Bahamas with a particular time frame of hurricane season, which began this year, which began in June. What type of time frame are we going to be expecting to relate to you? I know we have an upcoming meeting, but when give me, I guess, something in terms of the regulation being finalized, et cetera, with that in mind.
So at the moment, we're involved in having stakeholder engagement meetings. As you said, I think CBL's meeting is scheduled for Monday. We've had meetings with some operators or licensees already. At this stage, we're doing almost something similar to a gap analysis to see we're aligning our regulations with international best practice. And we do understand that a lot of what happens in the Bahamas is dispersed between different agencies. So in addition to meeting with licensees, we plan to meet with those agencies that have remit for different parts of our disaster management framework in the Bahamas. At the end of it, we will create a working group, which is something I think is already envisaged under the current legislation, and the industry will work towards helping us align the structure of the framework with international best practice. We think this work will take us into next year because we plan to do it in phases. So we do understand that June 1st just went, and we may not have made it to this June 1st, but we anticipate that by next June 1st, we'll have the new regulations in place.
Well, if that'll be all, we thank you so much for coming. Please enjoy the refreshments that we've had laid out for you. And again, we're going to have all of this available online. Should be by Monday, all the videos for you to peruse. And the annual plan and annual report are also online for you to digest. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good morning.